You're listening to the Valley Current.
Hey, Joe, how's San Diego doing these days?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
You love it down there, right?
I do. It's a lot different than the Bay Area. Got a whole different kind of look and feel. And yeah, I don't know. I'm probably a little tired of the Bay Area, especially now what I'm going through. I don't really have to be in a location anymore. So,
San Diego had a lot of real estate appreciation, maybe even more than San Francisco, right?
Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on the market. You still get a lot more for your money there, just because it doesn't have the robust job market that we have here. But yeah, it's just a completely different place. So much to do downtown. They got the ballpark, Little Italy, which is incredible. And then some of the areas I went and visited. I got a rent a car when I was there and drove some of the areas I looked at. There were, Del Mar, Solana Beach, places that are kind of not on the beach, but 7 or 8 blocks walking town, kind of like downtown Carmel almost. Nice. So we'll see.
The beach is a great playground. It's hard to replace it. Now, I don't know what climate change will do to it, but beaches in California are beautiful, and they seem to always go up in value over the long term. I mean, it's almost like you can plant your money there, and if you stay long enough and you don't get wiped out by climate change, you'll get some degree of appreciation.
Yeah, keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on the market, see what happens.
Well, the market seems to be slowly starting to get the air dropping from the tires, right?
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
And these layoff notices are not making it any easier. I think in some ways they're adding supply and reducing demand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basic supply and demand. People typically move. I mean, I don't know if this is all going to change, but typically people have moved for their jobs.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, historically, when you think about it, my parents, so I go way back, my parents moved from Queens because my dad decided to buy a business in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
He didn't want to commute from Queens to Brooklyn, even though you could argue it was just a subway ride. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be able to be nearby. So he found a house nearby, not far from the business that he bought, which was, of course, physical brick and mortar's little supermarket in Brooklyn.
Right.
It's no longer there. It's like a fast food restaurant now. It's amazing. I mean, it's next to this pizzeria that was like one of the greatest pizzerias in Brooklyn. And the last time I was in Brooklyn a number of years ago, pre-pandemic, the pizzeria was still there. It was being run by the son. And the son was grooming his son to take over. Like, it was a family business forever. And it was, Vic's Pizza. I think it's still there. It had some of the greatest thin crust pizza. But that retail is starting to, I mean, you can't get rid of a pizzeria, I don't think. I mean, Amazon would say, oh, we can deliver frozen pizza to you, but it's not the same. Right?
No, that's not the same.
You probably had some pizza in San Diego, is my guess, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you, if you guys ever make it down there, you got to let me know. There's a couple of restaurants that I actually had probably the best Italian food I've had in the United States in Little Italy, and a couple of restaurants there. Yeah, remarkable, really good.
So, well, there's a whole Italian neighborhood down there that you wouldn't know, right?
Yeah, and it's a really did a great job. It's a diverse group, and they got restaurants and kind of bars outside, and it's the whole outdoor living thing. And then they have live music playing in the courtyard, depending on the weekends and stuff. It's a really a neat place. Yeah.
I think there's even a section of town that's considered kind of the gay section of town, if I'm remembering the last time I was there. Like,
probably it could be. Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit like New York, right? They have different sections now.
Yeah, we went up to, they have several of these rooftop places where we went up to the top of the Marriott, and you could see overlook Petco Park, which is where the San Diego Padres play, and you could Yeah, they did a nice job with that downtown area. It's growing like crazy still. It's hard to believe. There's still construction. They're adding another runway and terminal to the airport. That's another thing. You get pretty much anywhere you want to go from San Diego, anywhere, even internationally. So it's pretty good that way too.
It's a big enough airport.
Yeah.
So did you watch a Padres game while you were down there?
No, we didn't have enough time. They were in town, I think, one day, but yeah, it was fun. It was nice. It was a nice, quick getaway. But back at it, I'll probably. I think I told you I'm coming out in May at a EXP convention. I'll be speaking at a convention, being part of a kind of a panel. I think the 16th through the 20th of May. We'll try to, as it gets closer, we'll try to see if you guys are in town. Maybe we could connect halfway or do something.
Yeah, you're going to be in Orlando?
Yeah, Orlando. Yeah,
that's where all these big conferences happen because it's such a big magnet for the Disney facility.
Right.
There's a bunch of other theme parks there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting place. I mean, I can't say. I mean, that's grown substantially as well, and it's a big airport. MCO is the code. It's a really huge airport, and it's definitely grown. So, what do you think is happening in the real estate market in California? I mean, in general, the sense I get is it's slowly going down, but maybe the higher quality stuff is staying high, and the better neighborhoods.
Yeah, I still think, as you mentioned earlier, there's some air coming out, but it's kind of leaking out slowly, and I'm waiting for. I'm not sure it's going to happen overnight. It'll be interesting to see what the third quarter and fourth quarter holds because. It looks like rates are going to stay up. And the only thing that's keeping the market somewhat lukewarm right now is that this is low inventory. That's it. Otherwise, if I'll give you just Santa Clara County, I think there's 12 or 1,300 homes on the market. In an average market, Santa Clara County is 3,500 to 4,000 on the market.
Wow. So it's like down 66%.
Yeah. So my take is all it takes is for this market, when I say this market, this economy to kind of continue on this trend. And I think more people will start putting the homes on the market because they'll think, boy, what's going to happen here? I don't want to, that just is a dynamic that starts to take place in a mindset of people. So my take is we'll get I think by the third or fourth quarter, we'll get a pretty good idea of how much air is going to be coming out of this housing market. It's already starting to come out pretty heavy in these secondary markets like Montana and Idaho and Nevada to a certain extent, where they had this tremendous amount of growth, but they don't have those strong jobs.
Right. Yeah. Right, and they're kind of vacation homes or they're secondary homes, and people start to consolidate because they don't want to pay the variable interest rates that go up as the Fed changes its policy. But you brought up something interesting in some email to me saying it looked like the Fed policy was affecting borrowers who weren't necessarily creditworthy.
Yeah, this surprised me. And it's probably a part of the current administration's philosophy, I'm guessing, but it surprised me. And a lot of the economists are worried about it, that it might, not to a certain extent, but a little bit like 08 and 9 when we had. So what they were doing is the government has extended credit. And believe it or not, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but they're going to give better pricing and better fees to people with poorer credit scores because their belief is they're trying to help people get into housing. But how do you explain that to the average consumer that works hard to keep their credit scores up and it makes no sense to me. It's counterintuitive to what lending's supposed to be.
Unless you say there's some sort of implied reparations that are applying here.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, it's like the way in which they did the waiver or the amnesty on the federal college loans, right?
Right.
I mean, they sort of did a bit of signaling there that people can't. I mean, look, you look at a student these days that's coming out of high school
Mm-hmm.
Got to decide, can they get a scholarship is probably the first thing they ask themselves.
Right.
Not like other places like Germany offers free college.
Right.
You don't really have free college unless you say, well, maybe you can get amnesty, get the federal loan and get amnesty. But I know a lot of people that carry those federal loans and they're paying them off in their 40s and 50s, like literally into their middle age, because big balances, and the payoff is a very slow payoff.
It is. Yeah, it is a bit like that, Jack. It is a supportive reparations. I think that's a good way to put it, because what you're looking at is they're trying, and I understand in theory they're trying to help maybe people at a different level or maybe unfortunate, but you have to be really careful with that slope, because when you start incenting borrowers that probably shouldn't be borrowing money to begin with,
right?
Kind of like we had in 08, when 07, 05, when they're just lending money to no one have to prove income and, no docs, none of this stuff. I don't think it's not going to get that bad, but I do get concerned when a philosophy on lending is counterintuitive to what we're normally supposed to do. And we're supposed to incent people and give them better rates and fees for being a good credit risk. And now we're doing the opposite. We're giving people that are not historically a good credit risk, we're giving them better rates and lower fees, which concerns me.
Yeah. Well, what do you say to people that say, well, why can't I get the better rate?
That'll be an interesting one, right? I mean, that's going to be something we're going to have to deal with. And some people just won't disclose it, but in the business that I'm in, I keep track of this stuff every day. And this was amazing to me when I sent that to you, to touch base a little bit on this, because the bigger part then about is you saw, also the economy, which really seems to be becoming fractured. You saw Google put a halt on their big city planning. There was going to be Google City downtown. They bought up thousands of acres there by the train station and by, what is that, SAP Stadium where the Sharks play or wherever it is.
Right. That was surprising, because those things take a long time to get those plans approved. Yeah. It's a long cycle, and you would think that they put those plans in place. But I think they've got very nervous about what's happening with this ChatGPT/AI movement and Microsoft's thrust in the area. They started to imagine, well, what does this mean worst case? Right. In terms of the advertising business, because the next logical thing, or people are going to develop applications that have advertising in them. Yeah. And your go-to is going to be first put your query into ChatGPT. There's going to be advertising that'll be connected with that. It's not there yet. Now they charge a fee. If you want a paid account, it's $20 a month, which is small for what you get if you use it. But, a lot of people that are lazy, you have to feed ChatGPT a certain amount of text that describes your query if you really want a decent reply back. It's not like Google where you type in 2-3 words and something is going to happen. It really isn't. It's really quite different. Mm-hmm. It's really an interesting situation right now. I think there's a lot of worry about how disruptive will this be. And I don't think that there's been much takeoff on the Google competitor called Bard. No. ARD. I don't think people are using it.
It's interesting. I don't know if you just saw that. Literally, it was the first time I saw it today, where they're saying that maybe we may have, as a society and as a world, we may have kind of got overzealous, a little bit too overly excited about the GPT, the AI stuff. They're talking about some of the major stocks have come down significantly because some of the hype is wearing down a little bit. We'll see. I guess time will tell, but I think it's real. I mean, I test it every day on a certain amount of things, and it's really going to have an effect on the market. And all kinds of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it wipes out a lot of middle manager or jobs that really don't involve creativity per se, involve really sweat of the brow, where
marketing,
or stuff that's not so consequential. But I have to say, there are even some people that are building applications in the medical area. And it gives you kind of an interchange with someone that sounds like a doctor. I just played with one version of this. It surprised me. I was surprised at how similar it was to the advice that I got from my own medical doctor. I won't put in the issues that I described, but it was kind of like a fairly sophisticated series of questions. And it came back with a lot of detail and a series of additional questions. And it was one of these things that, it surprises me more and more about, is this real? Sometimes I think it's a dream, that we're all in a dream state and this stuff really didn't happen. It's in somebody's imagination. And the way I did it, Joe, you'll love this, because I was literally doing it in my car while driving with voice on. With
wow!
So imagine
that's quite the testimony.
So you've got a ChatGPT window up in a Tesla display, which a lot of people don't know. You can run applications while driving in your car. Instead of just the GPS on, it can have essentially the equivalent of a web screen.
Okay.
And you can dictate your voice to the microphone, and it'll put the query in. Mm-hmm. And you can get essentially a voice back if you want to get voice back, or text back. If you're in traffic, you could theoretically have stop and go reading text. I don't recommend it, but you could do it. Certainly if you're parked, you could do it. So you could see a little bit of the future, which is if there really is true self-driving, what Tesla is calling FSD, full self-driving, which I guess I think is really going to happen. You'll literally have another office in your car.
Wow.
I mean, real estate people say they live in their car all the time. They're driving around from open house to showing to whatever, right? And they do a lot of their work in their car. And they definitely typically get a high-end car to do it in. And imagine that you can dictate this stuff and effectively get research done, really detailed research done. I'll send you a link to a TED Talk where one of the guys who founded the company talks about where this is going. And I have to tell you, what he describes on the TED Talk in like 20 or so minutes is a future that sounds like a very high-powered set of assistants, not just one. I mean, where you could say, give me, like right now, we could say, ChatGPT, give me a trend line of what interest rates have done over the last 6 months, not, hey, research associate, build a spreadsheet and get me a trend line. That's 4 or 5 hours of someone's time. That's like half a workday for a lot of people.
Well, yeah. And what it does to the consumer, I mean, I'll take it to another level, the real estate agent, but let's take the consumer now. The consumer could be driving in their car, kind of to your point, with a Tesla or car, and say, I've just arrived in Chicago. Give me these zip codes, the house price range at 1.5 million with the best schools, the lowest crime, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, this is going to change, many industries. We could go down the list of the industries it's going to change. But yeah, it's remarkable, some of the data that comes out, and some of that when you run these examples, it's almost hard to believe. I agree with you. It is kind of futuristic for sure.
Well, you're hinting at something that's been in the literature called decision support. And most decision support has been people. People supporting other people in making decisions. You could say that 70% of corporate America are decision support people. In various roles, whether it's pushing a spreadsheet, pushing a Microsoft Word document, collecting research, doing Google searches, whatever it is, compiling information. Well, if that information can be auto-compiled and effectively presented, which is what this TED Talk does a fairly decent presentation on, by the co-founder of the company, or the main guy, I guess, who's the CEO of the company. he gives some examples that really knock your socks off. They're not available yet, but the teaser is like, this is going to be on everyone's desk. So we're all going to have to get ready to use it, just like we've gotten ready to use Zoom, just like we've gotten ready to use the web, just like we've gotten ready to use Google and all the Microsoft products. I don't know how you enter the workforce, or for that matter, even the school system, without becoming a proficient power-like user of something that's going to extend your reach. Right.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And just to imagine, how long ago was it? Remember the time, Jack, when they said you better have a good website, and your website better be user-friendly, and it better, right? I mean, that's archaic now. Isn't it funny to think a website? I mean, you still have to have a website, don't get me wrong, but isn't it funny how far we've come now from just a website?
Well, and you have to now do stuff like checking what is ChatGPT describing about me.
Right.
If someone types in, tell me who this guy Jack Russo is in Silicon Valley and in Florida and licensed to practice in multiple jurisdictions, and tell me what he does and give me kind of some reputational score. Now, I don't think it's going to give a reputational score right away. I think someday it will provide something like a reputational score, and it will give a lot of information, almost like a dossier.
Right.
About who is this person?
Right.
I don't know if you're watching this show that's been on HBO. I guess it's now called HBO Max, called Succession. Are you watching?
Oh, I have been watching it. Yes.
I mean, to me, look at all those people that go out to the sort of big sale meeting.
Yes,
that takes place in Norway, where a bunch of Swedes are essentially hanging out to discuss the future of their company, right? There are all these like minions of people, and they're all worried about getting cut. Did you see last night's episode?
Yeah.
It was pretty funny, right?
It's good. Yeah. It's a great show. It really is. Yeah. Matter of fact, before I forget too, another one I just finished, which was remarkable. I don't know if you saw it, but The Offer it's the making behind The Godfather. The story behind how that, it's amazing. I had no idea that the involvement of the mafia and that all kinds of stuff was going on. So the making of The Godfather.
So Joe, while we were talking, I did type into ChatGPT, and I will put it on the screen just as a way, because I do think the future is we are going to have to probably be watching this data the way you could say you could be watching your FICO score.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Right? So I just typed in, who is Jack Russo of Computer Law Group, LLP in Silicon Valley, California? And it came back with, and I just did this in real time, literally a second ago. And this was ChatGPT. It says, so as a well-known attorney, the founder of Computer Law Group, blah, 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 blah. And this was ChatGPT default model 3.5. I probably should have set it, because I'm paying for an account, so I probably should have set it for the more recent one and seen if it changed in any way, right?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So let
me see if I can do that. I mean, I couldn't get this thing to do it. I guess I'll have to log out and try to log in again and see if it'll let me do it. But to my way of thinking, that's kind of where we're headed, where you'll have to watch what and then correct. And then the question is, how do you correct it?
Right.
When it makes mistakes, because it does make mistakes. And those mistakes are real, and you won't want those mistakes to persist. You want to correct them, right? Particularly for yourself or your business. And as you change your business over time, you'll want to keep it. And it's going to make mistakes because people make changes. People leave jobs. People leave industries. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Stuff happens. People unfortunately die. Yeah. I mean, stuff happens. So I'm just looking. I'm going to set it to ChatGPT 4. I'm going to.
So is that the highest level at this point? 4?
Yeah, 4 is the highest level. I think you have to pay to get access to 4, or if you get access to it without paying, I think they do limit. So I'm going to show you the blank screen. It's now set to GPT-4.
Well, this is great. Okay, let's see the difference.
So let's type in, who is attorney Jack Russo of Computer Law Truth LLP in Silicon Valley?
There you go. Let's see what the difference is.
See if there's any difference, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, it says September 21, Jack Russo. This one says as of cutoff date, September 21, Jack Russo, common attorney. So it gave a little bit of a disclaimer.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So that specifically tells you in the last update, so to speak, right?
Right. The previous one didn't do that.
No, it didn't.
Odd, because you would think that the previous one would have said it's 2021 for this, but for GPT-4, which you have to pay for, you can get more current information, right?
Right.
So now I'll ask, what is the website link to Computer Law Group? Let's see if it gives that. Because it doesn't, so it gives a cutoff. Oh, here you go.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. Yeah.
So you can see, I don't need to go to Google anymore.
No.
Now, Jack Russo. Now, you might say, well, it's not giving you all the links. I can say, what other internet links refer to Jack Russo, I guess, and see what it does. I'll say to attorney Jack Russo, because there are some other people with the name Jack Russo, right?
Yeah, you have to get really good at being very specific.
Yeah, and that's an advantage Google would say they have, but Google gives you a lot of garbage back too.
They do.
Right?
Wikipedia and all this other stuff, yeah.
So they have a LinkedIn profile, Computer Law Group profile.
Oh, look at that. So it gives you
a Avo profile, Martindale Hubble profile.
Gee.
Right?
Boy.
So provided 4 links.
So you get more specific, detailed, relevant information here than you would if you did that on Google all day long.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more targeted, right? Because Google won't surface like here he's giving the super lawyer's profile, the fine law profile, there's a Bloomberg profile, there's a Crunchbase profile.
Well, to your point too, Jack, I think as you're talking, and there's so much involved here, but let's face it, if someone enters into Google search, Jack Russo, attorney, LLP, whatever, right? What's going to happen is by default, because the ad system's set up, they're probably going to have law firms come up that aren't related to you because people are paying for ads that type in law, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So I just asked for anything else, including YouTube.
Look at that.
And they're giving some YouTube lectures I did at Stanford. Like you wouldn't get that because they don't rise to the top in Google.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, but you can imagine now you have to have some sort of bot going on to check on the verification of this stuff, right? Like you can argue, well, make sure the links work, make sure this happens, blah, 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 blah. You really want to do a lot of stuff. So you can see where if this is your assistant and you want to make sure that what it's giving you is correct, you may have to do a certain amount of maintenance. So I imagine there'll be companies that will come up and say, we make sure that you have the right description in ChatGPT, because this may be the go-to research place. Just as you said, you land in a particular zip code, you want more information, right?
This is interesting. You know, as you're doing this, I wonder what this is doing for the HR and recruiting marketplace. Like if instead of going to LinkedIn, you just put in, who are the top 10 engineers in Silicon Valley or something, right? I mean, something like, I'm just throwing something out, but it's amazing. This is to a certain extent, will even take over a lot of the steam from LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn gets impacted, which is why they're starting to adjust their business model to some degree. I mean, this is a disruptive technology, and it's going to impact lots of industries because most of the United States is knowledge work. We don't really do manufacturing anymore. Maybe that'll come back, but most is knowledge work. Knowledge work has moved on the internet. The internet is just full of information that often you can't really get to. I mean, I'll do the comparison in real time by adding a link to Google, right? So let's go to Google.
There you go.
And see what Google says. If I say, I mean, I could ask the same question, right? I could say to Google, who is attorney Jack Russo of Computer Law Group LLP in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, let's see what it says here.
California. Same question.
Same question, yeah.
In Google. So,
okay, well,
it comes up with a different list, right?
It does.
Like my guess is it has America's top 100 high stakes litigator. That's nice. I don't know how that occurred. It does give you the website, so it is going to the website. It is giving you detail about the website. Does give you the link. This is actually probably where Google has some strengths. It's got Google reviews.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So it's got some value there. It comes up with the LinkedIn. It comes up with the super lawyers. It comes up with some of the other places that I've done presentations. But overall, it's not giving you something you can cut and paste easily into a little report for whoever it is that you're doing this for, right?
Exactly.
Right? Because if we go back to this, you could cut and paste all this data into a bit of a report. Like I could even say, and we're trying this in real time, Joe. If I say combine all the above, please, okay, let me use the word please, all of the above information into a very organized report or presentation to my boss.
Interesting.
See what it does with that. It's taking a little bit of time. Subject, Jack Russo, attorney at Computer Law Group, Silicon Valley. Introduction.
Wow, look at that.
It's writing an essay in real time. Let's see if it combines.
That's amazing.
Right?
That's amazing.
Right? Professional.
Yeah, look at them bullet points. Yeah, background.
Bullet points with the dossier, right?
Wow. That's amazing.
Official website.
Yeah. Personal
profiles, professional profiles.
Look at that.
So it took all the above information. This is not scripted, Joe. We didn't even have this as a subject. We wanted to talk about interest rates and real estate, but we got we're talking about ChatGPT and what it's doing to the reason that maybe we're going to see a lot more inventory on the market as people start to lose their jobs because layoffs are happening.
They're happening. They're happening in the high tech for the first time in many years. You're seeing thousands and thousands of high tech, and then their tribute. They do. On a side note, they attribute the market kind of attributes Elon Musk again taking the big bold step and saying, "Why do we need all these people at Twitter?" And it kind of opened the door for the rest of the high tech execs to follow his lead.
Yeah, you could say he was criticized, and there's certainly a lot of litigation going on, including by some of the senior execs who feel like they weren't properly paid their severance parachutes. And I'm sure that litigation will churn through the system. But he would argue, I'm saving a company that would otherwise be out of business, probably, he would say. And it kind of ties to last night's Succession show because there's a lot of bloat in traditional reporting and a lot of bloat in knowledge work. In Twitter, if you want to call Twitter a knowledge company, it is a knowledge company. I mean, it's more of a technology company, but it's organizing a lot of knowledge. And he's doing something with it to make sure it survives. Now, I think it probably would have failed as a company in the long run if it didn't change its business model.
Yeah.
I don't know what that will eventually be, but there's a lot of AI data that can be harvested out of Twitter. Now, whether it's accurate or bullshit, I don't know. I mean, the question is, the question we're raising, which is how accurate are all these links?
I think that I think that you could already see what's happened. This is going to be a big part of how things play out in my mind over the next couple of quarters as it relates to the housing industry that you and I are talking about, and really pulling this back together, bring it all together. Is that when you look at the massive layoffs with high tech, high paying jobs, and the stock prices coming down, most of people that were living a pretty large life and buying expensive homes in Silicon Valley really relied on their RSUs, their restricted stock units, their stock plans, they're selling their stock, their pay. The other article, Jack, that we related to the economy and how it might affect housing is, I don't know if you shared it or I shared it, but was for the first time, I think it was Meta, for the first time in their history, they were actually laying off qualified engineers. Did you see that?
Yeah, that surprised me because engineering talent is very expensive to acquire, very expensive to blend into teams. So that's got to be viewed as a major signal that they're cutting pretty deep.
Right.
They're not really going to have any sacred cows at all. Like they're literally going to say, we've got to cut really, really deep. It ties to the Succession show last night because that whole episode was about the worry of the amount of cuts that were happening, and the people that are cut are just like miffed, but their jobs were inconsequential to this, fast-moving younger group of Europeans that effectively see a lot of fat, see a lot of automation that's going to take over. And it's an amazing statement. I mean, we shouldn't ruin kind of the story for people that watch late, but at some point we should write down our predictions of what's going to happen, because I think there's like so many different ways that show can end. It's going to end this year. It's going to end this season. This is the last season. They decided to end it. Right. And maybe wisely, because I think you can run these programs too late and people get really bored about them, right?
Right. Yeah.
But you could argue that the news industry, the reporting industry, has been dramatically affected by the internet and by people who tweet. And that's the news. It gets up on Twitter faster than the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, FT, or any other local paper, any paper anywhere in the United States can do it, because they do a lot more fact checking.
Yeah. So I guess the only downside, but it's amazing what it does, what this does here. The only downside, which should probably fix itself soon, is the how current, right? They kind of give the acknowledgement or the disclaimer, if you will, that this information could be only relevant up to this date. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to type in one last query. I'm going to say, what information and internet links does Google, I bet they don't touch this, does Google provide about attorney Jack Russo?
Interesting.
Of Computer Law Group of Silicon Valley, California. They might not touch this. I cannot access real-time search for results. Google. I can't provide some links. Okay. So they're not touching that with the 10.
That's pretty good.
Right?
That's pretty good. So
they're saying to themselves, that's Google's swim lane.
Isn't that interesting?
We don't want them to get into our swim lane. Right. There's almost probably an implied agreement between the two companies to stay out of each other's swim lanes.
That's interesting.
I recommend you conducting a Google search using keywords like Jack Russo attorney, Jack Russo Silicon Valley, or Computer Law Group. So you can see what's going on here. They could, I think they could have automation that would automatically go to Google, fetch the results, and bring it back. But they're probably like, we're not going to touch that, because what we're going to strip out all the ads, and then Google's going to say you're poaching on us.
Right.
We don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Whether they, as a matter of First Amendment rules, could legally do it. I mean, obviously, I could just grab this stuff. Like, I could grab all this stuff, right?
Cut and paste it all, yeah.
Right? I mean, like, you could say, well, they just gave you these search terms, that you could put into your Google search, right? So I'll do another Google window, and we'll do this as a final example. Here's Google. I could say, these are the search terms that these guys recommended in quotes. And it says, did you mean what? Okay, fine. They're asking for or. Zero results.
Look at that.
That's weird, right? I don't understand why they're.
Yeah, that is weird.
They should come back with something, right?
Yeah.
Weird.
Well, that is interesting.
It's not taking, maybe it's too much. Maybe it's like too much information. Let's just do Jack Russo attorney, which they suggested. Yeah,
there you go.
So it'll come back with a different list in a slightly different order. And then the wrong law office, unfortunately, because there's no mention of computer law groups. So
right.
It's with a different law office.
Interesting.
So it's so you can see what's happening, right, Joe?
Right.
It's like you have to now maybe manage your ChatGPT profile, but I don't think there's any direct way to do it.
No.
I think you have to put thumbs up or thumbs down on the description and hope that causes them to basically make an adjustment. There's no button that says, how would you rewrite this? There's nothing like that.
Right.
There should be probably, but then you get into pranksters that might decide to rewrite it in a negative way.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, we're going to, I definitely think we're going to see what kind of air comes out of this economy over the next several months. The longer it goes, the way we are kind of just floating around right now, in other words, there's really no direction. We're just kind of just floating around. And I think the other wild card is, I don't know about you, but it's another show for another time. But what has me concerned too, we haven't talked about, is, what's happening politically and against these other countries. Is there any potential conflict and wars? And I mean, that is something that could turn the equation even in another direction. So,
well, Italy has banned use of ChatGPT for some.
I did see that. Right.
So they're obviously feeling like, we don't want this to affect these jobs. We don't want it to disrupt. It's hard to believe you can put the genie back in the bottle.
I don't know.
Once it's out there, people are going to use it. I don't think you can stop people. It's like saying to people, please stop watching porn. They'll say, oh, porn's available for free on the internet? I didn't know that. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, it does the opposite. It probably incites more people, more young people, to defy any government ban to do it. And so I doubt, like I say to my people, and I think everyone's knowledge business should say this to their people, learn as much as you can about getting better and better and using these tools, because they're not going away. The spreadsheet's not gone away. There were a lot of people that resisted it for a long time. The word processor is not going away. A lot of people resisted it for a long time. Voice recognition is not going away. There are a lot of people that are still resisting it for a long time because they somehow get nervous speaking to a computer. But I think that's what we're going to see in the future, more and more and more and more. There's just no doubt about it.
Is the next level going to be where you could just think, you don't have to say what you're saying, and they could read your retina or your biometrics and all that? And that brings in a whole different type of technology.
Well, that's another Elon Musk startup called Neuralink.
Right. Yeah.
That believes that the electrical signals from your brain can be converted into thoughts and expressions of thoughts. I mean, if that occurs, then you could argue these AR glasses that you'll wear become communication devices where, I mean, there are some couples that are so in sync with each other that they just know how to read the body language of whether somebody likes something, dislikes something.
Right.
I mean, they really are joined at the hip. I think there are some couples that really pick up on each other, and they just know kind of the vibe, what's right or what's wrong. And that's where you could say maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I guess it depends on what the vibe is. But overall, Joe, I'm glad to see you're back. I'm glad you had a good time.
I did. It's a good time, and we'll see if we could keep things going. Yeah, it was a good getaway, and it's nice to see You'll know, you could appreciate being in California all these years. We finally have a good stretch of weather here. We were complaining with all this rain. So.
Right. But it's still like in the 40s, right?
No, it's actually, it's in the, well, you mean in the evenings?
Yeah, I looked this morning early, and it looked.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the major difference. In the evenings, it still cools down, as you know.
Right.
Unlike the lifestyle that you're living over there in Florida now, where it's nice and warm in the evening, still good on the joints and the body, huh?
Right. Yeah, it's a different approach. I don't think that cold weather suits anyone that wants to be outdoors as much as we want to be outdoors.
Right. Unless
you're okay bundling up in a lot of clothes. And some people are, obviously, that live in Minnesota and other places that get extreme weather. I mean, I don't know how people do it, but they love it. I mean, they love the winter sports.
Yeah.
It's a different, when you're doing a lot of biking and a lot of running and hiking and stuff like that, it changes your perspective about the weather. And
yeah, it sure does.
It really does. I mean, we were out in the warm Gulf of Mexico water early this morning, beautiful, clean water in the Gulf of Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I think the water temperature was like 82 or 83 degrees.
Wow.
Into the water instantly. I mean, you can't get that at Stinson Beach. It's just too cold. Beach and any of those beaches. It's just too cold in August. I mean, can you imagine in April? It's too cold in August. But, literally it's warm enough to get in. And my own belief is that salt water used daily really is a lifespan and health span extender. I don't know how you quantify that in terms of, but being in that water, if you can get into it enough times, and like it's the equivalent of a salt bath.
Yeah.
It's all there for you. You don't spend any money at the beach. You just go to the beach and you dive in, you spend some time in the water, you get out, there's a shower available, and then you feel like you've had your workout.
That's great. Yeah. Enjoy that Mexico. You guys are in Mexico right now.
No, we're not in Mexico, but that's the next target for us.
Oh, okay.
It's similar there. It's similar there. Okay, Joe, you take care. We'll talk to you.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.